G'day expats and welcome to another episode of Expat Chat, episode 154 today. 154, just checking that. And we're not joined with James in the Gold Coast or Adam in Dubai. We're actually joined by my mate and colleague Patrick Canyon, who's in Switzerland. G'day, Patrick.
G'day, Brett. I've got a hard act to follow with those two, but I'll do my best.
Oh, mate, I don't know. Sometimes they talk a good game, but
Yeah, exactly.
you've got the what are the lecturers call themselves? They've got tenure. You've got tenure in the industry. You've got tenure.
tenure. Hopefully I have a tenor as well.
That's right. Just explain to the folks out there who haven't met Patrick before. Patrick's our guy in Switzerland. He's the head of advice in Switzerland and also an expat as well. And how many years in the game now, mate? Has it been?
Oh my goodness. I sound old when I do that.
You can round up or round down.
It actually technically was just over 40 years since I started as an insurance clerk in National Mutual.
Okay, there you go, folks.
So I went to work in the horse and buggy and had the quill pens.
It's when the TVs were black and white, weren't they too?
Exactly.
Well, folks, let's get the disclaimers out of the way to keep the compliance officers in the world happy. All the information that Patrick and I will talk to you good folks about today should be treated as informational and educational purposes only. Please do not construe this as personal advice. If you do need to get personal advice, speak to a specialist and licensed and regulated firm like Atlas. Right, mate, let's get into
Sounds
it.
good.
So big news coming out is Switzerland. The referendum. Talk us through, sort of talk to me like I'm a 4-year-old. What is it? What's it about? And how does it affect expats?
Okay, well, there's a real big vote coming up on September the 28th. Now, Swiss, they like to vote. There's voting like every 3 or 4 months. The really cool thing about Switzerland, though, is that certain laws require, this law is passed Parliament. It's to do with changing the tax treatment on home properties. Now, it's passed Parliament, but because it involves a constitutional change, the Parliament has to go back to the people and say, do you agree with what we've done on that specific bit of legislation? Which, as an aside, I think is pretty cool. So what they're actually saying is they want to abolish the ability to deduct your interest on your mortgage payments, but they'll also abolish what they currently place on homeowners, which is an imputed rental income. Now, to get that through, you need more than 50% of the people and also more than 50% of the cantons to vote yes. Now, Brett, that was a big mouthful. Okay, there's a lot of detail in it.
And it's good, yeah.
Well, but I think the starting point for Aussies is to understand that Switzerland treats home ownership and the tax treatment of mortgages very, very different from Australia. Australia, of course, your personal place of residence, there's no capital gains tax on it, but you can't claim any deductions for interest or anything. Completely different for Switzerland. Okay, so homeowners can actually claim their mortgage interest as a tax deduction. They can complain any renovations or improvements, their insurance, all of that's a tax deduction. Now, Aussies, we love our tax deductions.
Yeah, we're specialists.
So when I heard that, I was going, wow, that sounds fantastic. But then I heard the bad news.
What's the catch? What's the catch?
The catch is that Switzerland then say, well, we're also, even though you're living in your own home, we're going to add a fictional income onto your earnings that's between 60 to 70% of the market value of the rent of your property. So, even though you're living in it, you're not paying rent. And let's say your income is, for round numbers, 100,000. Okay. At the end of the year, you don't just pay tax on your 100,000, you pay on 100,000 plus whatever the imputed rental value of your house would be. Now, in practice, what that means is the deductions kind of offset the income and it's neutral while you're still working. But, and I should add that this treatment was introduced as an emergency measure back in 1934.
Okay, so 2 years before Australia wrote their residency laws. There you go. So there's a lot of laws going back to the 30s, isn't there?
Well, yes, and it also says always beware politicians who want to introduce temporary emergency measures because nearly 100 years later, it's still there. Now, the concern with this, though, and why this law is proposed to be changed is it that all kind of works fine when people are living and working and you've got a couple of incomes in your home and everything. But it has some unfortunate implications. Firstly, it provides a disincentive to paying off your mortgage. Think about it. If you own your home, there's no interest payment, but actually you then have a deemed income. Your tax actually goes up by paying down debt. So as a result, Switzerland has the highest rate of home indebtedness, throughout Europe, if not the world. And it also means too that when people retire and they stop earning income, they've still got their home loan, but they've also got extra tax bills on a lower income. So you have this situation where, many people are looking at, well, wow, can I afford to live in my home once I retire? Now, the banks love this rule because it also means people just don't pay down their mortgage. They just keep it going. But the flip side of it is that it complicates the just owning a home. It increases compliance costs, and so the government's kind of going, look, let's try and knock this on the head.
So in terms of that, I guess, is there an index or something, a local index, either cantonal or federal, in terms of what that place is worth, and like how it's everything's subjective at the end of the day?
Well, this is it. And it also demonstrates a big difference in where the main taxing power lies between Switzerland and Australia. In Switzerland, it's with the local cantons.
Yep.
And so the federal government basically says, listen, your imputed income has to be at least 60, but no more than 70% of the market rent, the market value of the rent. But each canton works it out differently. And so you have a different process that can apply. Some use market rates. Some use simply a deemed rate based on the valuation of your house. It's just no two places are the same, which is actually a good lesson for any Aussies thinking of moving to Switzerland. It's not just a country difference you've got to look at. It's where in Switzerland are you thinking of moving to?
Reminds me of the US. In the US, they've got the local state taxes. You got the big bad bear, California at one end, sort of taking a lot, and then places like Delaware and stuff like that, they take anything at all, and Nevada and that sort of stuff. So it sounds like a very similar system, because in the United States, they also provide tax deductions on expenses on property and interest expense and those things. But you also pay capital gains tax on any sort of gain greater than a certain value. So it seems like the US and Switzerland almost, if you sort of squint, they have very similar systems when it comes to how those two, stack up together.
Yes, it is a similar approach, and it also brings in some interesting lifestyle choices because unlike the US, Switzerland's quite compact.
Yep.
And so a big part of planning is where do I live and where do I work? Because you can have cantons can and do compete against each other, and that includes income tax rates. So it's almost it's almost renowned, for example, that people will work in Zurich but live in Zug.
Yep.
Because it's an easy 20-minute commute, but the tax rates are much lower in Zug.
And you're taxed in the canton you live in, not where you work. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and that's why you also get the folks living in France dropping across the border into Geneva all the time too, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. But that actually is a little bit more about the cost of living.
Yeah.
Because there's again special taxes for the frontalier, which is the term. So they can't really arbitrage the tax, but they arbitrage the cost of living because things like groceries and rent and
it's a lot cheaper in France.
Prices, a lot cheaper in France. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sorry, France.
No, no. I mean, I've been to both, and Annecy's just across the border from Geneva, and I don't know, I'm Team Geneva personally, but that's my my personal opinion. Fast forward to the 28th of September, the vote gets up. What does that look like? And then give us the other way around. If the vote doesn't happen, what's the ramifications from that as well too?
Okay, well, obviously, if the vote's no, or we don't get that double majority, nothing changes. It simply the current situation stays, and life goes on. Now, if it's a yes, there is a transitional period, okay, of a couple of years before the new system kicks in. So that means that if you're owning a property, and you think you're going to be facing some maintenance, don't put it off, right?
Yeah,
I'm
do it
like
now.
I'm the one that always procrastinates. Yeah, I'll get around to fixing the roof or whatever. Well, don't do it now so that you can get your tax deductions in and get the value of that. Now, again, you don't have to panic, but there is a couple of years transition.
Yeah.
You can do that. The other thing too is that one of the measures they will bring in if it gets across is a still special deduction for first home buyers.
Okay.
So, unlike Australia where they, give a grant towards the price of it, what they're going to do is allow tax deductions on the mortgage interest for a 10-year period of time, up to a maximum level of 5,000 for individuals or 10,000. This is francs per
Yep.
couple, and then that'll taper down for 10 years if you're a first home buyer.
Okay.
So, I think what they're really trying to do there is, encourage people to pay down debt, uh, simplify things administratively, but also really, if you like, free up a little bit of the market for housing. This will encourage the creation of more apartments. This is what proponents for it are saying, at least. Encourage the construction of more new apartments because there's not this fictional interest being charged on them. And also, a downside if you're a property owner is it potentially could decrease the value of established or older buildings. And remember, an older building in Switzerland could be a couple of hundred years without
Yeah.
too much of a problem, because it will require more maintenance, which suddenly doesn't have the tax deductibility associated with it.
Gotcha.
So the idea is to increase housing affordability and reduce indebtedness over time. Whether it proves that way or not is another thing to be seen.
That's the thing. If you're getting tax deductions on interest, you want to keep the interest as high as possible to get the tax deductions. So the
Yeah.
Swiss are very much like the Aussies in that regard. Sort of tax deductions are a sport, and I think Aussies play it pretty well, and I imagine the Swiss play it pretty well as well too. So if they do take away that tax deductibility, as you say, it is going to reduce the indebtedness, and people are going to want to smash those mortgages. You might
Yeah.
actually see that reallocation of assets. People who've got assets sitting X property, they might actually bring it in and pay down that debt because the
That,
return on capital drops dramatically.
well, exactly. And the real variable in all of this is the interest rate in Switzerland. Now, Aussies dream of Swiss interest rates. They're under just under 2, I think, for home mortgage, or maybe just over
Amazing.
2%. The official interest rate of the Swiss National Bank is 0%.
Yep.
And so we're in a situation now where, on average, because the home mortgage rates have come down and will keep coming down, the tax bill is higher than the deduction.
Yep.
So it's actually a great environment to do exactly what you said. Just basically smash that capital, get it down on the interest rate, particularly if there's no additional tax liability from this imputed rent as a result.
Definitely.
Now, again, that's great for individuals. You and I both know how well having equity in your home provides a fantastic base for building and diversifying your wealth and achieving financial independence. The bank's not so happy because
No,
they
got
like
less
having
loans.
loans. Yeah,
They like
exactly.
debt.
Exactly. But, I'm sure they'll think of some other way to make money.
No, I've always joked there's guys in rooms with no windows in these banks that all their job is to do is think up ways to levy fees and charges and do it in a way that it's quite clever and tricky.
Yeah,
Clever from their point of view anyway, not clever from the client's point of view. So, but I think that's a
exactly.
brilliant summary. And to me, obviously, you'll do a follow up blog on our website atlaswealth.com. So
Yep.
make sure you uh, follow our website, follow our socials. We're pretty much everywhere you need to be. I'll also do a quick highlight for the folks out there too that you've just been running a really I mean, I love it. The Alpine Aussie series. So you've been sort of traveling around Switzerland, talking to Aussies in different locations, different backgrounds, different careers, different personal circumstances, and I think we're up to episode 2 now. So with Kiri
Yeah.
being the latest one in Basel, and
Yes.
so for folks who aren't aware of that, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel at the Sport Group, and have a look for the Alpine Aussie series because I mean that's the thing I've always loved about this job. There are Aussies everywhere doing the most amazing things. Every time you turn over a stone, there's another Aussie. So if you
Mhm.
are interested in Switzerland or just listening to the Swiss stories of how people got there and why they went there, and obviously, with was it David in Geneva? That was a company transfer. With
Oh,
Kyrgios.
Duncan. Yes.
Duncan, sorry, Duncan. I knew
Yeah.
I was getting that wrong. Didn't sound right when it came out. To me, it's all these things that just make us a community, and I love it. So keep up the good work on that, and I look forward to the future episodes. And also, the other announcement is that mate, you're waving the Atlas flag at the AFL Switzerland competition round, which is fantastic.
Mate, I went to my first round the other week and it was so much fun. I didn't pull on the boots. I was
You did?
tempted.
Yeah.
No,
Got a hamstring.
I was tempted, but it was so much fun. They've adapted the game to the circumstances.
Yep.
And so it's a modified rugby pitch, 9-a-side. And what's really exciting is it's a great mixture. It's not just Aussies. It's Swiss locals too are taking up the game and getting really
Fantastic.
involved. Had a couple of lady players as well,
Good.
so
Yep.
it's deadly serious, but it's no one's going to
Fit for
break a
purpose.
leg or yeah,
Everyone's
yeah,
enjoying
exactly.
themselves. And
And it's this beautiful, glorious summer day on the banks of Lac Léman or Lake Geneva
yep,
in Lausanne. Jason, the CEO there, does a fantastic job of organizing it.
he does.
And it really ties in well. I mean, we love supporting that, but also, getting back to the Alpine Aussies, it's, the challenge is for all expats, I guess, not just in Switzerland, is you come into a strange country. And whilst you want to integrate and get familiar with it, it's also nice to have a bit of familiarity and community. And yet, it can feel very lonely. And
It can.
so this was kind of our way of letting people tell their own story as a way of fostering a sense of community amongst Australian expats.
Mate, you're spot on. I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you're in a foreign country and you don't know anyone, you can be surrounded by 5 million people and you feel like the only person, on the planet.
Yeah,
And, to me, it's getting involved with both the business chambers, Auscham Switzerland, of
yeah,
which I'm a member of as well too. Very proud to be part of that group as well. These little things just, they don't remove the friction, that just take the edge off. I remember when
mm,
I,
mhm.
moved to Dubai to set up the office here, and within a week I was at a State of Origin lunch for the Australian
Oh,
Business
okay.
Council in Dubai, and within that, having a chicken palmy and a couple of beers, talking to strangers, watching the, Queensland beat New South Wales, of course. Um, I was already invited to 2 golf games that weekend. I went
Yeah,
from turning up, not knowing anyone, to sitting around with guys for a couple of hours, having a beer and a chicken palmy, and
mm,
then that weekend I was on the golf course. So that's what the
fantastic.
centres become. Now you might not be close to one, and that's why we do the visual as well too. From the video
Mhm.
perspective and socials, is just to show there's everyone out there is like you. We're all in the same boat. We are might be geographically pulled apart, but we're all there in the same boat. We're all going through the same pain points and everything. And that's what I love about both Duncan and Kiri's videos and the future ones as well too, is different people, but
Yeah,
there's such a commonality in
it's
the circumstances and the why.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to see the similarity of circumstances and approaches and the challenges they've all faced, and they've all ultimately thrived and their lives have been richer as a result. So I can't wait for the next. We've done 5 episodes, so there's another 3 to come. please tell us you love them. You know,
Yeah, no, we're vain. People, folks, I tell you,
the,
I say this to people all the time. We are vain. You and I sitting here looking at cameras. We don't see everyone else. So you need to give us a bit of a smoke signal by hitting some likes and comments and subscribing, because when we see those numbers, we think, oh, okay, actually, this is worth our time and effort to do more.
yeah.
So
Well, I have so much fun doing them. I'd probably do them if no one watched because it's so much. But you know, at the same time, yeah, please give us your feedback, and if you like them, we'd love to do some more.
definitely.
Because there's some more really good stories to be told in our Alpine Aussies series.
Look, the deeper you dig, the bigger it gets. So, folks, you've heard Patrick. He's as vain as I am. So let us know what your thoughts are
Probably
on
more.
this series, and we'll keep doing it as long as people watch them and like it. We'll keep going. So there's a lot of stories to tell, and we'd love to tell them all.
Great.
All right, mate. Well, let you there. We'll let the folks go. No, yeah, let the folks go, I should say, and we'll let you go for the day as well, mate. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, Patrick. See you, mate.
See you around.